From MTN News, this is Montana This Morning.
It's time for the St. Jude Dream Home giveaway.
We are able to do more cutting-edge science that other places would probably not.
Buy tickets this morning, get entered in for a chance to win a house on the West End, plus other great prizes. But you better hurry, these early bird tickets will run out.
Being able to do that without any parent having to pay a bill, for us to do the cutting-edge science that we do, it's all made possible through donations.
And remember, buying a ticket will make a difference in the lives of children with cancer.
Every foot forward we make in the battle against cancer, it's shared ubiquitously across the entire globe.
Good morning and welcome to Montana This Morning on this Wednesday, February 15th. We're kicking off the Dream Home giveaway in just a few minutes. We're going to tell you how you can win a home on the Billings West End. Our call center is open right now, and that number again, 1-800-592-1621. Folks are taking calls to buy your ticket. Got some news and weather to get to first. We begin in Livingston this morning, where RY Timber, an employer in the town for 25 years, is shutting down. After two fires, one in September and one just a few weeks ago, owners say they can't financially justify trying to reopen again. MTN's Jolie Saley reports.
It's going to be kind of hard to, say goodbye to everybody.
Doug Rogers and John Miller have worked at RY for years.
Usually half the time I'm in a machine digging stuff out, or I'm swinging logs up here on the decks, and
there's always something to do.
There's always work to be done around here.
But since the sawmill went up in flames last week, Rogers and Miller say all they've been doing lately is picking up the pieces. Something RY has been doing since September, when their planer building burnt to the ground.
The first fire was, I'd been on vacation for over 2 weeks, so it was my Monday coming back. I just had a baby daughter.
And fast forward to February 7th.
To come to work last week, Tuesday morning at 5 a.m. to see the fire trucks all here again. It's kind of heartbreaking in a lot of ways.
It's like, what's next? I mean, we just had a fire a few months ago, and we were dealing with that. We kept all the employees working.
But now Dan Richards, the GM for RY, says they no longer have the resources to rebuild.
The planer's been under construction actually since like a week after it burned down, and another month it would be up and running. Yeah. But we still had another $500,000 to put into it, and the owner just decided it was best to shut her down.
Richards says his heart goes out to all the RY employees.
That most likely most of them will be put on unemployment by the end of the week. For them to go out and start a new life, find new jobs, possibly move, difficult deal.
But in the meantime, Rogers and Miller are doing their best to stay positive.
Things happen for a reason, and who knows, maybe another sawmill company buys this place, and I'm sure we'll all see each other.
Yeah.
Who knows, we might find jobs at the same place again. Then we get to drive each other nuts again.
In Livingston, Jolie Saley, MTN News.
Montana Senator Jon Tester is weighing in on the closure, saying, quote, RY's closure after more than 25 years of creating good-paying jobs and responsibly managing forests in Montana is tough news for Livingston. I'm ready to help the region rebound by working to ensure that folks have access to resources they need to support their families and communities. Senator Steve Daines said the news of RY Timber closing is extremely disappointing, and I stand with RY and the community of Livingston during this hard time. We'll continue following that. A judge is temporarily blocking the planned expansion of Bull Mountain Mine north of Billings. The Interior Department gave Signal Peak Energy the okay to increase coal mining operations there, but a federal judge in Montana found errors in environmental reviews, leading him to reverse that approval. Judges say the federal government and Signal Peak must start over with a new application that complies with the National Environmental Policy Act if they wish to move forward with this process. A lot going on this morning in the Q2 studios. We've got all our call center volunteers up there taking calls right now.
Absolutely. A chance to win a $500,000 house for only $100, and it helps out the kids at St. Jude. What a wonderful cause this morning, and we'll
great fundraiser.
Tell you more about that in just a bit. It's cold out there.
It's very cold this morning. Ooh. Feels different than it did yesterday.
What did you say you're doing this number on the wind?
Yes,
on the steering wheel this morning? I know, touch the wind, the steering wheel.
My hands were so cold.
Well, let's talk about those temperatures. Right now we're sitting at 5, feels like 11 below here in the Magic City at the airport. Winds out the southwest at about 12 miles an hour. Behind that cold front that gave us a record amount of snow yesterday at Logan. 3.5 inches of snow. No new snow in the forecast today, but blowing snow is going to be an issue off to our west as we get into the afternoon. I'll tell you about that with the main forecast here in just a bit, but look at those temperatures out there. Single digits, some of us below zero with the actual temperatures. Highs today in the 20s and 30s. We've got road closures from Lame Deer down to the state line. 212 is shut down. Also Sheridan to Gillette. I-90 there has been shut down as well. TFN because of hazardous driving conditions. It's a bit dicey out there, so please be careful heading into work and school this morning.
Yes.
Complete look at your forecast coming up, including talking about yet another winter system heading our way. We'll do that here in just a bit.
Yeah, winter is back and weather is back.
Yes.
And Chief Dull-Knife College is also closed today in Lame Deer, obviously, probably because of the highway.
Yeah, absolutely. Hazardous conditions out there. Be careful, folks.
Okay, thank you, Miller. We'll check back with him in a few. And continuing our coverage, Sidney residents are charting a new path forward after the announcement the local sugar beet processing plant is closing this spring. And with the planting season ahead, Q2's Jackie Coffin catches up with some beet farmers in the area trying to figure out what's next.
Sugar beets have been part of our history for almost 100 years.
Sarah Dane's family roots are firmly planted in the soil of this sugar beet farm near Sidney, roots that go back 4 generations.
My great-grandparents came over with the Homestead Act in 1925, the same year that the sugar beet factory opened.
But after 100 years, the future of the factory that supported generations of sugar beet farmers is now less certain. It's set to close in April.
The biggest draw with the sugar beets is that we had the factory in town. It's a 6-mile haul for me, so it's a real easy decision to grow them.
Dane and other beet farmers are now trying to figure out how to pivot, or in some cases, whether to call it quits completely. For some, that means planting new crops.
It'll be interesting to try and replace the income from sugar beets with different kinds of grains, different kinds of hay perhaps.
One crop Dane is experimenting with is the namesake of her farm, although you won't find many others planting it in eastern Montana. She's growing hops.
Plant a couple new varieties and work with the local breweries here and maybe in North Dakota. Get some fresh hop beers going.
The Montana Dakota Beet Growers Association says the organization had about 75 farmers signed up to grow beets for Sidney Sugars in 2023. And some say they saw the writing on the wall. Beet acres in the valley were on the decline as farmers say contracts with American Crystal, Sidney Sugars' parent company, paid less and less over time.
These men and women would grow sugar beets for the rest of their lives if they could make a living doing it. But you can't make a living on $49 a ton for sugar beets.
MTN has reached out repeatedly to Sidney Sugars and American Crystal, but our calls have not been returned. But in a press release, representatives for American Crystal said farmers had lost interest in growing the crop and there was not a big enough sugar beet haul to keep the facility viable.
They cannot be allowed to get away with blaming it on the farmers that they're ruining.
I just instantly got angry, which I'm a fairly calm person, and putting the blame on the farmers is ridiculous because I already ordered seed. I had fully intended on planting.
A big blow to these farms and this community, and not just a financial one, as Sidney seeks a new identity and a future without sugar beets. In Sidney, Jackie Coffin, MTN News.
MTN has also reached out to Montana's congressman about the closure and have not received a response. At the state capitol, members of the Joint Select Committee on Election Security could introduce new voting legislation within a week. State legislative leaders set up this committee with the goal to reaffirm election security and ease any concerns from Montana citizens. Now the bipartisan group is discussing possible bill ideas. One proposal is to set up a new central hub under the Department of Justice where all reports of election-related issues can be investigated.
I think it would give the citizens a feeling of being heard and give us an opportunity to look into those instances and come out with some kind of conclusion.
We learned a lot about processes and systems, and we learned that our Montana elections are very secure.
Over the last month, the committee heard testimony from local election officials, the Montana Secretary of State's office, and the company that produces Montana's voting machines. We're now learning more about the victims of Monday night's mass shooting at Michigan State University. The 3 people killed and 5 injured were all students. And as CBS's Charlie DeMar reports, this tragedy is prompting yet again calls for action on gun violence.
Michigan State University students received support from Comfort Dogs and each other as they mourn 3 classmates killed in Monday's mass shooting. Junior Ariel Anderson, an aspiring pediatrician, sophomore Brian Frazier, who was president of his fraternity, and junior Alexandra Verner, a talented athlete. A vigil honoring Verner was held outside her Clawson, Michigan high school last night.
She was kind and positive and empathetic and compassionate.
Investigators right now are trying to determine why a suspect with no ties to the university chose to target it.
We don't have an answer right now, and that's the honest truth.
Police say 43-year-old Anthony McCrae began his rampage at Berkey Hall, an academic building, killing 2 and injuring others. He then went to the student union, killing 1 more. Investigators say McCrae later turned the gun on himself as police were closing in.
I never thought it would happen to me.
Freshman Ryan Cahalan sheltered with his girlfriend in a nearby library that night.
Mass shootings are becoming common, and it's just not an okay thing. Like, we need to do something about it.
Students painted the words, "How many more?" on a campus landmark.
Words are not good enough. We must act, and we will.
Flags in Michigan were lowered to half staff. Classes at the university have been canceled for the remainder of the week. Charlie DeMar, CBS News, East Lansing, Michigan.
Police say a caller's tip led them to the suspected gunman, who they say was on probation for a previous gun charge. Officials and family members of the suspect say he also had a history of mental health problems. School safety is again a major concern following the Michigan State shooting, and here in Billings, School District 2 is applying for a Homeland Security grant to replace cameras at Senior High School. County leaders are seeking similar protections at the county courthouse through that same grant. But the new cameras do come with some stipulations. They can't be made in China.
The fear is there's the possibility that they could access that remotely. If you eliminate using their products, you minimize the risk.
Leaders list potential violence, terrorism, and election security concerns as reasons the county is seeking upgraded cameras.